Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Please don't hate me. This is gonna be the last video addressing the values of our car. I had to make a follow-up because the comments on the last video were absolutely insane. So in today's video, we're gonna talk about how Subaru WRXs and STIs are valued on the market, what affects their value, why their value is inflated, and why it might decrease. This is applicable to any car in the car market. We're going to talk about some of the laws of supply and demand, and a little bit about the history of the Subaru platform and the VA Generation WRX or STI. That's the 15 plus WRX or STI. So you can be a little bit more informed about your car. Now, I promise, guys, I know there's a lot of hate and that people don't want to hear about the financial side of the automotive industry, but I promise last video, and I give it a chance. At least listen for 3 to 4 minutes of your time so that you can better understand what what you have in your driveway, so you can get a better picture. I'm not going to try to convince you to sell your car, keep your car. I just want you to have a better, more informed understanding of your car's value, because the comments on the last video, if you haven't seen that, go watch that video, look at some of the comments. Some of the comments are pretty insane and they're pretty jarring. It's incredible that some people just don't have an understanding of what car values are, how they're valued, what the rules around supply and demand are, and they're in a tricky spot that's just not as informed. It's not that they're wrong, they're just not informed enough to understand and have basically be able to even position themselves to guess what's gonna happen. And I was pretty shocked, even with how many messages and emails I got from people saying that these are investments and that they're buying 2, 3, 4, WRXs or STIs because they want it to appreciate over time and they think they're gonna double their money in the next 4 years. So I guess I'm just making a video kind of addressing those things, and it's a lot, a little bit of information about how cars are valued and some prediction about what's gonna happen in the future. I will have a very normal Subaru WRX STI video coming out this weekend, so fear not, we're not just talking financial stuff. It'll probably come out Sunday, so keep an eye out for that. It's a really cool video about breaking down the difference between two parts that we all put on our cars as a reliability mod. So I'm really excited to have that video come out shortly. And I did just buy a project car, which is sitting literally over there in the driveway, working on making some videos to unveil the new project car for the channel. It's gonna be a little bit of a track winter build, just to have some fun while I'm working on another project that's gonna be so exciting for this channel. Something that gets me back into the Subaru platform. More information on that later. All right, so the 10-second recap of what happened with last week's video. Got a lot of attention, a lot of negative attention. A lot of people basically said that they don't care, whatever, that I'm sour, okay, fine, whatever. I'm not gonna tell you to sell, buy, whatever it is. More than that, the comments were, I'm using this car as an investment. You don't understand what the values are. My value of my car is up right now, so why would I sell it? Because it's only gonna go up more. And then on top of that, people just not understanding that the car's values are gonna change. They're saying, my car is worth X amount now, and the values of this platform don't really depreciate, so that value isn't gonna depreciate. So I guess in this video, I'm gonna address those three things, and what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna break down, one, just supply and demand for the whole industry behind the WRX and STI, and then I'm gonna break down the 3 tiers of this platform that I think are relevant to this conversation, which is the WRX, just in general, right? The FA20 WRX, and then we have the STI, and these are just normal average wear and tear STIs, and then STIs like the 2015 through 2021, the VA Generation STIs, they're first engine, low mile, not tuned, low owner, well cared for. And those are the 3 kind of groupings that I'm gonna talk about in today's video. So first and foremost, supply and demand. Why is supply and demand important? Well, used car prices are completely defined by supply and demand. There are some other factors that build that thing, like your base pricing, what the dealers are pricing their vehicles at. So basically the way that you can look at the used car market is there's a basis price, and that's defined by many, many different factors. And then you have that price is then affected by the supply and demand for the market of the car. So it can either drag the prices for those used cars underneath that basis price or inflate them over that basis price. And that's where you see the fluctuation in prices in the used car market. The greatest example is with supply and demand. If there are more cars on the market of a certain kind of car, the prices that you're going to be able to buy that car are lower, meaning the values are going to get lowered. This is just in general. As scarcity happens and you've got more demand than you have supply, the price of it goes up because Of course, there's not enough to go around, so people are overpaying, and that drives the value up because then you can sell your car for more. What's happened with COVID and everything is it's affected our supply and demand in the used car market. So currently, even still now, it is starting to change now. The past 2 weeks has been really telling, but for the past 2 years, supply has been lower than demand. So we've seen the used car market go really high up, and that's because of the lack of new cars. Now it's really starting to change. I think, just having looked for cars too, and just seeing the statistics of the market, we're down about 8 to 10% in the last 2 weeks, which is staggering. And if you're looking for cars right now, or you monitor the used car market, you will see that cars are going, they're being reduced by $1,000, $2,000. You're just seeing them drop in price. So the first thing with the WRX and STI, their current values are defined by high demand and low supply. That is a fact. They are very far over what is called the basis price, which is the price that is worked together by price of the new ones and what the car is worth relative to other cars in its market and all those things. The best example of why it's way over the basis price is if you can get a new vehicle at MSRP, you're not too far away from the existing one. The STI this isn't the best example because we just have had that new generation, but even pre-2022 being released, that was the case for the 2021. So we can use the same market example. Now the problem now is we've gotten to the place where supply and demand are not only just equaled, but we're starting to see a higher supply than demand for the WRX and STI market. And that's why I made last week's video. The prices are starting to normalize. We're starting to see that dip. So beyond anything else, we are going to see more supply than there is demand. And what that's gonna mean is it's gonna be harder to sell your WRX. You're gonna have to drop the price to sell it because you're gonna need to give somebody a good deal. And that means the average market median price is gonna go down because of those occurrences. This is why you see niche markets like the R35 GTR. This is why when you see people post their GTR in a GTR Facebook group and it's too cheap, all the owners go say, raise your price, raise your price, raise your price, because they know that there are so few GTRs for sale at any given time that if one person undercuts the market, all of their GTRs prices becomes, effectively affected, and it lowers their GTRs prices because there's now one instance where somebody spent 40K instead of 60K. You guys see what I'm saying. So let's break it down even more, because let's say you're like, wow, my WRX, my FA20 2015 plus WRX is worth $20,000 and it's got 60,000 miles on it. Maybe it's the 2020 or 2018, whatever it is. You're like, wow, it's worth $20,000. Well, the problem is it is going to go down. Here is the biggest misconception about the WRX itself. One, the new generation is out. So about 50% of the market, probably more, 50% is already generous, thinking that some of the community isn't gonna like the 2022 WRX. But in reality, when you look at these Facebook groups and people commenting on these videos, they represent a very small portion of who's actually buying these cars, just based off the volume of cars that are being sold. So yes, the 2022 WRX numbers are down, but in general, people are still buying them. So we are still seeing that emigration from the VA Generation WRX. So the other problem is how many WRXs were actually made. In the United States alone, over 30,000 iterations were sold every single year. So we have a massive pool of WRXs. And they're so new that we're not seeing them leave the market like you would see another car. A great example would be the Miata. The NA and NB Miata between 1991 and maybe 2003, those cars are starting to increase in price after a certain amount of time, and that's strictly because so many of them are becoming off market. They're rusting out, engines are blowing, people aren't fixing them, so all of a sudden you have the same supply, you have the same demand because it's a legacy car, but the supply is constantly decreasing, so the Miatas are getting more expensive. The problem is we're not going to see that with the WRX for a long time. These cars are built so well that even if you consider that 20-year difference, our cars nowadays are going to last longer than the NA and NB Miatas, and all those examples don't really fit together. The WRX also doesn't have the same legacy as the STI, so it's never going to perform the same way. So anyone that thinks that the WRX is going to appreciate is likely in for a rude awakening. Now, this is not a negative thing, this is just a fact. So let's move on to the STI, your average VA Generation STI. If you have a 15, 16, or 17, there's already a really good chance, a tangible chance, that you are either on a second engine, you've had an accident, you're more than 2 owners, or you're high mileage for that engine and you're at 80,000 plus miles. All of these cars are not going to be unique in the grand scheme of things. So if you're saying to yourself, I have the last generation STI, right? Yes, maybe over the next couple of years, it might increase in price if you have a very clean model. That's going to be until Subaru announces the next STI, which will likely have a massive performance boost. And then if that happens, we're going to see a mass migration, because part of what the STI delivered was that performance. And not that many people are tied to the STI versus the generation, not more than any other platform. So we are still going to see a mass migration. The problem is because it's the EJ and we've got all those problems with that engine, those STIs that are, you know, treated normally or not so normally, basically normal to not normal, that's going to be the full band here. Those aren't going to be worth as much as you think. The clean versions, however, so if you are a low mileage STI, maybe a single owner, maybe two owner, no accidents, first engine, well-kept records, never tuned, you have some very real chance until the next generation STI is out that you're going to hold value even at the inflated rate. I don't think you're going to appreciate, because a lot of the other platforms for all of their car brands are starting to deliver far more performance for for less money, or the same amount of money. So we're going to still see a migration from people from the STI EJ platform to other platforms strictly for performance reasons. And because that's happening, my prediction is that the laws of supply and demand are going to stay true, because we're still going to see the migration away from the platform. So if you think about this platform as a whole and you're like, I want to park some money in one of these cars, or you want to, you know, defend your value, the best chance you have is a clean STI. With that said, I will say that the Subaru WRX and STI historically are one of the lowest appreciating cars on the market in general ever. But you have to understand, we are so far appreciated at this point that they are going to be subject to the correction. Not as much as what you might find in a Honda Civic or even a Prius, which is appreciated a lot, but we're going to see a very large dollar amount change. Enough of a dollar amount change that my point with the last video is, statistically, that dollar amount change in value is going to probably be more than a full year's payment on everybody's loans who have loans on these cars. Statistically, if you look at the median owner, they do have a loan on the car, and then even more fearfully, 30 to 40% of those people have a loan greater than $10,000 on the car. So when you see that adjustment in value of $3,000 to $4,000 in the next 12 months, whether you have a WRX or STI, it's going to be a jarring change in the dollar amount that is in your driveway. That's the only point that I'm looking to make. I just want people to be more informed. There were a lot of comments of saying, I don't want to care about this finance behind cars until I have my GTR, or I have a, you know, Ferrari or a Lamborghini. The point that I'm trying to make is to have that GTR, Ferrari, or Lamborghini, you know, one, before you're 60, but just in general, if you don't play this game of like understanding where you're losing money with your cars, because it's not that hard not to lose money if you do the right things, then you're just never going to get into the next platform. So this channel is all about education, understanding both cars, having fun with cars, and more importantly, protecting your investment in what you're doing so that you can enjoy cars. I want to make unbiased content about the platforms, modifications, but more importantly, tell you guys the reality of the finances behind cars, personal finance, and all those things, because it's very important. And anyone that disagrees isn't going to have a sustainable, fun time with this niche, with this, you know, hobby. You might force yourself into it. You might work yourself silly. You might do all those things and enjoy it. I'm just saying you don't have to if you do the right things. I'm not saying go sell your WRX or STI. I'm just saying be ready to weather the storm that's coming. And maybe this is the time, go out and find a clean STI, or do all those things if you want to really protect your money. If you're driving an STI that's got an accident on it, maybe this is the time to get it traded into something that doesn't have an accident. Maybe you're going to spend a little bit more money, but in the grand scheme, you might protect it because it might hold its value, drop a little less. You know, I'm just making some predictions. For a lot of us, this is the time to exit the platform for a small period of time and then re-enter when we have the correction. Financially, that is the right thing. Now, I will be the first to say that sometimes that dollar amount of financial savings isn't worth the loss of having fun with the car. For me, I wanted to have another project car, so I'm still having that equal amount of fun, and I can wait. I don't love waiting. Part of me wants to have kept that money and just lose the money to stay on the platform, but for some people it doesn't make sense. My perspective for me is I'm doing okay for myself, so I can make that choice. I guess I'm just trying to help educate people that, if you have a loan on your car, you're definitely not in that position, right? You got to think about the long term for yourself, for the health of you and your finances, and more importantly, like, there's nothing worse than having no money and have something go wrong with this platform, especially if you own an STI. What happens if you have ringland, right? What happens if your engine fails? Like, with any other platform, I would tell you that that's a very rare occurrence, but in reality, there is a tangible chance in any person's ownership of an EJ that you're gonna have a problem that needs to be fixed of $4,000 to $5,000 or more, right? Engine replacement, 10K right now, probably even more with the cost of parts. So it's more about just protecting what's in your driveway and understanding how these cars are valued. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Mod content coming out on Sunday. We'll get back into it. Have a great day.